Hello and welcome to the Boxing Today show, which is a new show that we're going to be doing here on the Boxing Index, where we'll give daily updates for everything that's been happening in the boxing world. So make sure to subscribe if that's something you're interested in. The first thing we'll be talking about today is the Joyce versus Daniel Dubois fight announcement for the 28th of November. And they've also said, kind of surprisingly, that there's going to be no fans and it's not going to be on pay-per-view. So I'm not completely sure how they've even managed to get the fight on in that way, because obviously you'd think that they'd need the revenue from either fans or pay-per-view. But hopefully that'll set a bit of a precedent for the future, because this would have been a justified pay-per-view, because if you look back a couple of years to the Joshua versus Dillian Whyte fight for the British title, and this is also for the British title, that was on pay-per-view and it did really well. And we know that both Dubois and Joshua are both huge draws. So yeah, hopefully this might set a precedent for fewer fights being as pay-per-view fights in the future, like even if they are big enough, just because obviously at the moment, well, as Bob Arum's been moaning about that today as well, about pay-per-view, that with the coronavirus pandemic at the moment, it's just too expensive to be putting on loads of pay-per-views, because there are a hell of a lot coming over the next couple of months. And he was just sort of ranting about at Sky Sports for putting on too many pay-per-views, but I think it's mainly because they didn't buy the Lomachenko versus Lopez fight that he's putting on. So I think it was probably more of a slight at Eddie Hearn, because he knows that Eddie Hearn's the only promoter that deals with Sky. So by having a go at Sky for putting on too many pay-per-views, he's basically having a go at Eddie Hearn. And it's also strange because Lomachenko versus Lopez is a pay-per-view, and then he's been moaning about how there's too many of them. But yeah, the Lomachenko against Lopez fight on the 17th of November has been announced that in England it will be available on Fite TV, which I'm quite happy with, as it's usually quite cheap on there. The Charlo Brothers pay-per-view was only about £12 the other weekend, and I didn't have any problems with the platform or anything. But I guess it doesn't really set a good precedent for the popularity of boxing, from the fact that BT and Sky Sports have thought they're not willing to invest money in that show, because they don't think they're going to profit from the pay-per-view. Bearing in mind that Lomachenko is on most people's list the number one pound-for-pound king in boxing, and he's fighting Lopez for the undisputed. This is truly the best fighting the best in that division. It's the fact that Sky and BT have not wanted to buy that is slightly concerning, especially because it seemed like they were really trying to invest in boxing at the moment. They've both been putting on a lot of shows, really trying to bring it back from the pandemic. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to see. And then finally, last night was the press conference for yet another pay-per-view event in Gervonta Tank Davis versus Leo Santa Cruz, which is set for the 31st of November, on the same night as Usyk versus Chisora, so a nice double-header there for the fans. There was a lot of talk throughout the press conference and a lot of questions about Davis making weight, because obviously this is at super featherweight and lightweight, and he's probably better suited to lightweight. And super featherweight, he hasn't set the best record in that arena in the past in terms of making weight. And people, they were basically saying that he'll just be too dehydrated at that weight to make his power really count, because his power is what he really relies on, almost. He's got 22 knockouts in 23 fights. I think if he makes the weight properly over a prolonged period of time, with diet and nutrition rather than just dehydrating, I think he will have the power to knock out Santa Cruz. But then Santa Cruz has sort of the flip side of that coin, which is the stamina, the experience, and he throws an astonishing volume of punches in all his fights. So I guess, the simple view at it would be that Davis will take it early with a KO, maybe first 6 rounds, or Santa Cruz will take it late or on points at the end. But I think we'll have to see. And overall, I think that should be a great night of boxing, especially combined with the Usyk Chisora fight. I think that's going to be a really interesting one. Usyk's first proper test at heavyweight. But I will speak more about that when we get closer to that date. So thank you for listening to the first episode of Boxing Today. If this is the kind of thing you like and you want to stay updated with the sport, then make sure to subscribe. Go check out our articles on www.boxingindex.co.uk and go check out our social medias at Boxing Index. And thanks for listening. Cheers.